stuff. We're doing SharePoint and MDC. The MDC part, the SharePoint part was already built. I just had to review it a little bit because I've already done that for people. The MDC part I had to build as I went. In a week, it's going to be a little bit ragged. Are you okay? Are you joking?
Nope.
But we're actually, we got 4 or 5 MDCs to actually practice on. We've got to be really careful how we do that. And I'm going to be really specific so that we don't send information to dispatch and confuse them.
Come on.
So we will be live, so we got to be a little bit careful. And we'll go through all the steps, how to log in, why you have to log in or restart the machine every single day. And we'll practice a few calls. Any questions on any of this, or anybody have any huge issues with SharePoint or the MDCs? How many people have actually been sat up front, actually used the MDC? I know you have. Okay. It does throw people off a little bit at first. It's not all that intuitive to start with. Andy Logan just sat up front and had a horrible time with the mapping. And he'd done it, he just hadn't done it in a while. And I said, well, you need to do this and this, and then, oh yeah, okay. And he sat there for a call or two after that, and it worked fine. Okay, any questions, any concerns before we kind of get going on this? Okay, as you know, we switched SharePoint. I'm sure all of you were here in February of 2015. We did a short class for the officers at that time. It was a huge undertaking for us. We really actually built a much bigger site. Karen Kepner did most of the work, probably 2/3 of work. I did about 1/3 of it. This is what they call a wireframe of our sites. And we're going to kind of go through this real quick, what's where. And let's actually bring up SharePoint. Actually, it's up right now. All this stuff's transferred to NIMS. So, isn't that a pretty picture?
Yes.
Karen drew this, and then I took a picture of it.
Yes.
A horrible time of getting lunch today. How would you guys manage to get all of my favorite people on the fire list?
What a nice thing to say.
Well, except for my crew. I got it.
We won't tell them you said it.
These are actually websites and subsites. So that's why they use the term site. So AFD Homes, a subsite of the city's site, we have access to, there's a group, permissions group called Fire Members that everybody has access to pretty much everything on here. There's some other hidden sites underneath some of these. One that's on here that's a kind of a hidden site is officers. Only officers can get in that sub-site. OEM has their own site that only OEM people can get into. Pretty much every group on here has their own site where they can put hidden stuff. This PowerPoint's actually on a site on Fleet 2. It's a sub-site that only, there's a group called Fire Member or Fire Owners. So it's executive staff and Claire and me and who else? Teresa. Teresa's doing more and more SharePoint stuff. Claire's doing more and more SharePoint stuff. I'm still doing a lot of SharePoint stuff. I get up at 5 every morning at the fire station to do SharePoint before anybody else gets up. Because there's always somebody asking for something. We won't talk about that work.
Will acting officers have access to the things that officers have access to?
No. Which gets to be a problem because if you have a new person, there's a list they want you to fill out every day. You can't get access to it. So basically, what people have done is print out that do a new item, open it up, print it out, hand it to their acting officer, and said, write down notes on these things for the 3 days I'm gone. So that's a suggestion. Or just, we had somebody that was just at the end of the probation. I wasn't too worried about it, and I just asked, Jake was the actor for the 3 days I was gone. I just asked him, how did it go? And he gave me a couple of things, and I went in and filled out items for all 3 days. So we did this big change. The SharePoint 2013 is way better than 2007. We did have a few things from 2007 that worked pretty well. Some of these names have changed. It's operations and support services is now logistics. This picture is when we were first building this, and I thought I had Visio, and somehow I lost Visio, so I didn't want to do it on a formal sheet, and I had a week. Fire training has a huge library, and we'll go through what a listed library is in a moment. So that gives you a map of what the thing looks like. Front page, everybody's familiar with that, right? Let me see how that looks up there. So again, this is a little old, so just a few of the names have changed. I think Karen did an excellent job of setting up so it looks fairly decent. If you look at some of the other sites at other departments, they're a mess. Even IT's is not as good as ours. So, top navigation, there's sub-sites under each of these. We'll be adding, well, we already had most of the other ones. But we're still adding a site now and then. I added one this year so far, and there's going to be another one pretty quick. So when you hover over each of these, whatever sub-sites are under there, there'll be a drop-down. And then if you hover here, there'll be another drop-down with all the specialty teams. On the bottom of your piece of paper is all the specialty teams. Okay, on the front page, let's go back to the front page. Oh, there we go. These are links also to, usually just to sites. There isn't down to a specific list or library. We were asked to put that on. I don't know how many people are actually using those. I'm sure they're using them some. But it's just a quick way to get to things you need to look at. I would just added a thing to this list for the CAD and dispatch inquiry list, which is a place to, again, a thing you can't get to until you're an officer. It's a list to complain about dispatch. And that goes, let's talk about that for just a second. That list, and it's a good example of a list with special things built into it. So you go on a call, they send 4 engines, 2 trucks to somebody that fell off their bicycle. And the first officer says, well, I'm going to write that up as a problem. And they go and they fill out this form. It goes into a pending list. And some chief, and it should be Battalion 3 on their shift, looks at those and goes, okay, that's a legitimate thing dispatch has to work on, or that's a legitimate thing IT has to work on. They click a box for where it should go, and they approve it, and it goes on to either one of those 2 groups. Or they can disapprove it with a note and send it back to the person that generated it. So if we get a whole bunch of, like all 6 officers on my example, if they all fill that out, they would only let one of those go on to dispatch. The other ones, they would reject them and say, this has already been pointed out to dispatch, and get rid of those. So the reason for that is 2 things, so they don't get 6 complaints for the same issue. Second is, we could be more polite with some of these things. And sometimes we send them back to people and say, please rewrite this. So Battalion 3 has been tasked with approving or disapproving these items. So that's just an example of the type of thing we can do with SharePoint instead of just having it sent off to all these people. And dispatch used to get kind of irate about how we pointed out issues. So again, these links, health and safety, warehouse, office. This page is probably what you're most used to using. So there's subsites and there's pages. So a subsite, just like any website, can have separate pages on the website. This is a page on the home site. So let me go back one. Oh, I wish the clicker worked. So here, popular links. So we have a link on the home page to the popular links page. Has anybody, you guys have seen this, right? Okay, this is probably what you use the most often, right? You go here and you find the form that you want to fill out, or the list you want to fill out. Who has not filled out a list item? Everybody's ordered uniforms. Everybody's probably asked for, done a lost and damaged. I know we make our new guy do all the lost and damaged now. Just to get him used to. What are some other ones you do as a trade?
Apparatus.
Trade, yeah, that's a apparatus. Yeah. So.
The medications, the narcotics sheet.
Yeah. The narc sheet. Is that the
controlled substance?
Yeah, that one I'm not very familiar with. We might try to get to that and look at it. Where this gets a little confusing is like the apparatus list or your uniform list. Those are what are called lists, and they're kind of like an Excel sheet. So you fill out all those boxes, and then it comes up and looks like an Excel sheet. It sends an email to Teresa at the warehouse, and she fills it out, and then she goes in and clicks that it's complete. And she does that with station supplies. And where it gets a little complicated is there's a thing called a workflow behind like the station supplies list, because that's 200 items long. It takes 9 pages to print that out. So if she gets an email, if she got just a regular email of that, it'd be 9 pages for each one. So we had to build a workflow behind there. Actually, Karen did it. I've been able to maintain it. And what it does is anything you click a one or whatever, it goes in and looks and says, okay, this one has you ordered one of these, okay, we'll put that one in the email. So only the things you actually ordered go in the email. So each email is only 4 or 5 or 6 items. A lot of work to build, a lot of work to maintain. Teresa's pretty much maintaining that by herself now, because I just can't keep up with that anymore.
So once it's in place, why does it take effort?
Well, because there's supplies are changing all the time. So you have to change the supply list, and then you have to change the order the supply list is in. Then you have to change the order of the view, and we'll get to what views are in a minute. And then you have to go into the workflow and change the workflow to match
Same with
the
like
list.
rig inventories.
Hmm?
Same with rig inventories.
Exactly. Exactly. And we'll go through that because I have a PowerPoint on that. I promise you won't really want to kill yourselves at the end of this. You really won't. I know it's not as cool as building construction. So the point of this was trying to make it as easy as possible for you to get to where you need to go. Is there anything on this list that you would like to see that's not on there? It's getting a little full. This is right when we built it, it wasn't too busy. Are you okay? Okay.
Don't drool.
Oh my
Sorry.
I'm going to go stand in the back. Anything that's not on this page that you would like to see? Again, this is not an up-to-date page. We'll get to the real Sharepoint in a few minutes after we get done with this.
Scared me there for a minute.
I think pretty much everything that's really popular is on there. And the point of this class is just show you where a lot of forms are, show you where a lot of lists are. So if this disappeared, you would have an idea how the whole thing works, and you could probably still find what you need to find. This is not going to disappear. So this is probably the most important thing.
Sorry.
So a couple things. So this is under special services. What's special services called now? Preparedness? Is that right? Say yes.
Yes.
Okay. There's breadcrumbs. You see? There's breadcrumbs back to home, back to the top navigation. So here, and then if you get into this library or into this library, if you need to get back to just that page, you click on the logo, and it'll take you back to the page you're already in. It'll take you to the front page of that. So if you're buried way deep inside some, you're looking for trade paperwork. You go, I'm really confused, I need to start over. Click on the logo and it'll take you back to the front of that page. Wait. Oh, wait, I didn't finish that. So there's two different big items on all these pages. There's lists and libraries. So lists store information you put in, like ordering uniforms or maintenance requests on the rigs, or SCBA maintenance request. Those are lists. Libraries store like Word documents or PowerPoints. This PowerPoint is actually on the Fleet 2 secure site. So this is obviously Rhonda's stuff or Eric's stuff or who's ever. So what she has is two different libraries. This is a linked library. So you click on this, you'll go to some website outside of the city. And she built all these links. This is all documents that she has put in for people to reference. Training does that a lot. Training needs to clean their library because they have such a mess you can't find anything. One thing PowerPoint, and this is kind of beyond the scope of what we're trying to cover, PowerPoint discourages folders. What they want you to do is put in what they call metadata and columns that describe what's your document. So when you put a document in, you tell SharePoint what version it is, what division it is, subdivision, folder name, and folder name's a bad word to use, in a description. Or you can make up any metadata you want. You can make it anything you want. You fill all those out and you have no folders, and then you drill in like you're looking for a website on the web. Because there's no folders on the web. You just put in what you want and then modify it and then modify it until you get to what you want. And that's what they're trying to do with this. We have not done a good job with that. We still are folder oriented. We are slowly making progress towards less folders. Except for 3 days ago, I put 3 folders. Does this all make sense?
Yep.
You guys are looking at me like I'm...
Well, it's exciting. Sharepoint.
Well, it's exciting. It is exciting. This is Fleet 2. This was logistics document library. See all the folders. This is the actually demo of a list. This is the reserve apparatus status list. So who's an acting engineer? Who's an engineer? You're supposed to be able to go to this list and find out which reserves are available. I'm not sure George is keeping this up 100% of the time. But at least, I know he's doing it at least some of the time. So maybe he can give you a start. What I would never do is say, okay, 134 is available at 14s and just go to 14s. Call them and make sure it's there. So this is kind of an example of a list. So it kind of reminds you a little bit of Excel. This is to put in data in this list. This one's a little different because we're not, we're actually modifying each of these items. We're not adding new items. So we're saying, let's see which ones. 134. What we're doing is we're changing the status and where it's at. So it's in use at station 1. We can put a note in there if we want to and save it. And then this, instead of saying in use at, oh, wrong one, available at 14s, it would say in use at 1s.
So if we go pick up a reserve, we should do this, or we
No.
should let George?
George should do it. Once in a while, BCs will do it, but we find that everybody does it. It gets messed up. What they end up doing is deleting it.
And then, whoops.
Oops. Okay, we did that. Okay. So it gets a little bit messy where stuff is, which is why we did that links page. Loss and damage equipment report is tied into, under fleet 2, there's a list of all the vehicles and where they are and what equipment's on them as far as, you know, we have a lot of the cars don't have MDCs, don't have lights and sirens, don't have, so we list out all that stuff. One thing we had a horrible time tracking is the 470 tags. We have to be able to produce for 470 what tags on what vehicle anytime they ask for it, which is why this list originated. So we have a list of all 82 vehicles in this list, but it's tied to the vehicle maintenance request list, so that's why you have that drop down of all those numbers. Who's done a vehicle maintenance request? So there's a drop down with the unit number. You have to find your unit number. All 5 digits all the time. I know we do 134, but it really is 00134. It does require all 5 digits. I just had somebody, a promoted engineer, not be able to find a brush truck on the list because he was only using 3 digits. Doesn't matter who it was, but they're not in this room.
It matters who it was.
Doesn't matter who it
Yeah,
was.
matters.
You matter? No, it doesn't.
We just don't want it recorded.
So that's another example of something SharePoint can do. We got stuff in one list that references another list. We do that again with the SCBA. There's an SCBA inventory list. There's an SCBA bottle inventory list. There's an SCBA repair list. So you don't have to put all those serial numbers that are 14 digits long. It puts it all in there for you. We're going to be done by 2:30. What are we going to do? We don't care about this.
We're done by.
Yeah, we're not quite done. So this is SharePoint.
This is the current.
Yeah, this is the real current SharePoint. So this is Fleet 2 secure site. So if we go to Fleet 2, or logistics, Fleet 2, this is the development site. And actually there's, yeah, this one I have locked out, but, oh, there it is. Hit the wrong one. Boy, it's slow out here. So if, let me see which one was I working on. Oh, there it is. Okay. 15 write-ups and they're all really bad. Maybe we need to pull this out of service. We can provide records to ISO. I had to pull some reports for ISO. We do, who's a medic? Who's been, that's kind of a dumb question. When you got FI, your FI built a report on you on basically every call, right? So that list, that's a SharePoint list. They fill out a thing every call. You did great. You we had to discuss this issue, whatever. We pull those reports fairly often on people. I just had a request for one. We try to build them by person so they can look at the totality of that person. Because otherwise they're in there, they're kind of messy to
But like, who wants
look.
them? Why?
EMS looks at them before you get cleared.
Oh, gotcha.
And
But then after that, not so much?
not so much. But we do the same thing on the new people. I have to do a thing on Barnard, fill out a Sharepoint list thing every single day. And tell them what JPRs they worked on, whether they did a good job, and then there's 5 calls in there where you can put notes for 5 different calls. And whether they did a good job, whether they're catching on, whether, he's doing great, by the way, if anybody cares.
We don't even know who he is, so.
Yeah, kind of figured that. He's a lateral out of Tucson. Cat knows him.
Tucson.
Yeah.
There we go
I
again.
will send him to recruiting.
Yeah.
No one got fired.
He's a good catch. We did good. I just got a request to pull records on an individual for their probationary stuff from 5 years ago.
What?
Yep.
Is it me? I was like doing that.
76.
right here.
I have no idea what it's for. They just said do it. So I did it. Do you know about it?
Yeah, I know about it.
Okay, I'm glad I don't know. But that's why we keep these records. Okay, we're going to go through a slide. This was built to show engineers how to change a list for their inventories. So all of our inventories, there's 50-some lists, 1 per apparatus in the inventories in there. Did everybody know that? Say yes.
Yeah.
Okay, make me feel better. So the engineers, if they have to change something from one compartment to another compartment, each compartment's a column, and then you mark the items that are missing out of that compartment. If you need to move your cones from compartment 3 to compartment 4, you have to go into the back side of Sharepoint where we actually build the list and move it from one compartment to another compartment. So we're going to show you how to do that. Just an example of how this stuff works. Because someday, George, you're going to be the Sharepoint guy. Maybe.
Before I retire.
No, it's gonna be Brad.
Brad would do a great job. Nope.
All you need is control.
This is on Sharepoint. Could you guys find this right now? This is on the Fleet 2 library. So under logistics, Fleet 2, there's a logistics document library. It's in there. The other thing you could do is you could search for it under rig inventories. It'll probably take you to the inventory page. The actual inventories are under logistics, warehouse, inventories. It has its own sub-site just for the inventories. Yes, sir?
How come those aren't somewhere more apparatus friendly?
Where would that be? We really debated whether to put it under
I don't know. I just don't
Fleet
think.
2 or under,
I mean, Fleet 2 maybe more so than the quartermaster.
well, the quartermaster. The reason we did that is, and it's subjective, it's very subjective, is they supply all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just stuff.
Sure.
It's very subjective. It very easily, we really thought about putting it here. And the reason I didn't put it there is because I already have multiple sub-sites for building new stuff, and it would just be confusing for me.
So,
Which is not maybe a good reason, but it's the reason.
I don't know, George, Judy. I feel like it's harder to find, but obviously
Isn't it-
their computer skills are a little.
Isn't it in the
rough.
quick link? Is it in the quick
I
link?
don't know.
There is under,
Under useful links, it's there, right?
there is a link on the
Yeah.
popular links page. Let's go look at it. Let's get rid of that.
Just to let you know.
And then I'll see if I can get my PowerPoint back.
Just keep it on a Word document. And a checkbox. But, so,
Now, of course, I
We
don't
can
see
print
it.
that one. Print that check off
yeah.
every month.
Yeah.
Apparatus inventories for all rigs.
Can't see.
No, there.
Sorry. Why is that still up there? There we go. So we'll go back one. So under the monthly, because you gotta do it monthly. I forgot I lost my PowerPoint now. These are links. Every unit's on the left side, but there's 50 some of them. I think there's 52. If you click on fire station, it should take you to your apparatus.
Now, is that going to update if you're in a reserve apparatus, or is it just going to be the stuff?
No, it will not. You have to, you're probably going to have to go down this list. Fire station 18, somebody changed something. That should know.
You didn't hear we got Station 18? Double engine truck house.
The stealth station.
Double engine and double truck?
158, 113. Oh, it's
Capstan.
Capstan.
That is 21.
Yeah, why don't they put 21 there?
I don't know. Maybe I'll ask him if I
This is
remember.
the future station.
Just
If the
change
chief
it.
comes in, ask him. We'll change it.
Oh.
So
Just
where
change
would
it
you
to
find the reserves on this list?
The station they're,
This is just a.
the station
I
they're
know,
assigned
But if you
to.
have a reserve and it's the first of the month, you need the inventory, don't you?
Yeah,
Whatever station it's housed at.
the station
That's
it's
where
housed at.
Okay.
So 155 is
Hopefully,
at station 1. There's designed, when it's not being used, it's supposed to be at station 1. Whether Eholt's keeping that up when he moves rigs around, I have no idea. I won't comment on that. Okay, let's see if I can get back to this. Oh, there it is. Somebody just close that?
No, those are close.
They're doing Krav Maga outside the door.
Okay, so,
What table?
so when you hit new item, it'll come up compartment 1, you'll have all those lists of items that are in compartment 1. Click on the items that are missing. Don't click all of them. We've had that happen more than once. It's easy to fix, but don't click on all items as you. It's pretty easy to print these out, and I'll show you that because I just showed somebody that. Who did I show that to? I'm sorry. It's probably good to print that out and have a copy. Just make sure when you update, you get rid of the old copy. And make sure, don't just mark it missing for 8 months in a row. Actually, after a month or something, talk to the station captain, ask them what they want you to do. If they want a loss and damage, or if they want you to look for it, try to look for it. I know that's asking a lot, but maybe I lost a radio yet? That's really exciting, by the way.
We thought we did the other day.
A few times.
Yeah. Made it to the.
I left it at Starbucks for a couple days.
That was with you.
I forgot about that.
Oh, that one was with you too? Maybe it's you. Common denominator.
Huh? It's me. We walked in one day and they handed us a radio at Starbucks.
They're probably having a great time.
My
listening to
bad.
the radio show.
I wasn't going to say who it was.
Has any other engineer drove around the corner and had a door fly open?
Oh, it happens on occasion. You guys all know this already, but shut the door and pull on it and make sure it actually latched. It's an E. I want to say it's an E1 thing, but we did it in Minnesota too. It's hard to get the new people to do it sometimes.
You just yell at them loudly.
So apparatus inventories, as we just discussed, is under Quartermaster Warehouse. There is a link on the popular links page. The Excel sheets from way back when, which now it's a couple of years ago, are stored in the apparatus inventory document library. So they are still there if you needed to ever go back and reference them. There's the station list we talked about. 20119, that's your regular rig right now, right? Engine one?
Me?
Oh, engine.
You're at ones, aren't you?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
119 is engine.
Station 8.
Oh,
119 is engine one though.
yeah, okay.
Ben's at once.
Okay, so,
On the rescue.
so here's,
Still at once.
here's, after they finish the inventory, it's marked that they're missing headsets. And then somebody put in here that they're not missing 3 headsets, because we don't want to list each headset separately. So the explanation is they're really only missing 1 headset.
Why do you need 3 headsets?
And what happened there was they actually,
Why does the rescue?
we set them up with 2 headsets, then we had to go back and add a third.
Why do you
So
need
that's the
headsets?
story behind that.
Yeah. Thing is, sounds a little talk.
Okay, only check the boxes that are missing. When you finish, hit save. When you do this, and it's hard to keep up to date, there's what they call alerts, which are not workflows, alerts, and I think we'll actually show you where you set those up, where it'll send an email to whoever you had set up as an alert. All the station captains were in there at one time, but there's nobody doing SharePoint full-time anymore, so I don't know if they're up to date or not. But it's supposed to send an email to your station captain saying you did your inventory, and here's the stuff that's missing. So if you have a new station captain, they're probably, it's not up to date. What I'm thinking about doing is going back and I'd have to change all 50-some inventories and put a column in there for station captain. So we could set it up for whoever you put in there, you would send the email to. But it would be a lot of work. But it's probably the right way to do it. Changing stuff from one compartment to another. So, click on list, and this gets you the background where you actually build the list. List settings. And you guys do not have permission to do this on probably anything except the inventories. And all of you have permission to change any of the inventories. So, George, you can go in and change engine 9's inventory to whatever you want.
Change rescues.
I'll do that.
So you want to move something out of compartment 1, click on compartment 1. This is one of a type of data you can put in that column. There's all kinds of different types of columns. We can do text columns, choice columns, where you get this box like this. This is where you put in all your choices for that, what's in that compartment. You can do numbers, currency, date, and time. There's actually a list. Because we had already picked choice, you can't change it to everything anymore, but there's a list probably this long of types of columns. Can you see that? Nope. Okay. You can do different types of check boxes depending on what you're trying to accomplish. This, we don't want fill-in choices. We use fill-ins a lot. And then when you take out whatever you're taking out from compartment 1, click OK, and then go to compartment 6 and do the same thing and type in whatever you took out of compartment 1 or whatever compartments you're using. Does that make sense? Okay, it's you've done it. You've done it. You've done it. A lot of you have actually done it. It's pretty easy. And this was just an example of how all of these lists work. Okay, any SharePoint questions? Get rid of all of that. Uh-oh. How do I get back to SharePoint?
HTTP // fire. Right there, just arrow there.
Does anybody start using their OneDrive?
The J drive?
OneDrive? You guys have J drives, right?
Yeah.
Do you use them?
Yeah.
J drives are eventually going to go away. They're giving you what they call a OneDrive. It's kind of the same thing, but instead of having to have servers at City Hall, it's basically a server on the web. It'll go from 300 meg to a gig. No, I think they're each a terabyte. They're huge compared to the J drives.
You guys are already.
Yeah, well, I filled mine up. Mine's full. Anyway, suggestion is, you guys have Office 365, right? So, this is kind of off topic. So you can go to Outlook, you can go look at people, you still have a calendar, you have Word online, Excel online, OneDrive. And I have a fair amount of stuff in my OneDrive already too. This is OneDrive. So it's basically the same thing as a J drive, except it's on the web instead of at City Hall. J drive is actually a server or a disk drive server at City Hall. Huge, huge, huge compared to the J drives. They want to get rid of the J drives eventually. I don't know what that means when I'm actually starting to move stuff because my J drive's full.
So we can access this from home?
Yes, that's the other thing is if you can get to SharePoint, you can get to your OneDrive.
How do we
We
do
can
that?
get to SharePoint from home, can we?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
How do you do that?
Control F.
Nope.
Answer all.
So if I take that
Oh, Lord.
URL and plug it in at home,
That's a lot.
I'll get to my OneDrive.
There's gotta be a shorter version to get to SharePoint.
Well, if you get to Office 365, well, this is SharePoint, this is your personal OneDrive. So let's go back to okay, come on. Did I lock it up? There we go. If you can get to this, let's go to home. Are you okay?
Yeah, just do a little break real quick. I'll be right back.
Should we wait?
No, probably not.
So if you get to, if you put this URL in at home, you should get to it, to SharePoint and click on the grid, you'll be able to get to your OneDrive. I would try it at work first. I have all this set up at home. I have all these favorited on my favorites bar. So I have SharePoint and OneDrive, and then we have what's called a share site. Right now, SharePoint Fire Site is only fire people can access that, and IT. We have a share site that we do some things with Dr. Hill and with some other Aurora Mental Health and a few other people that we can share things outside of the city. So they have to log in, they have to generate a Microsoft account, and then when they get a Microsoft username and password, they can log into this share site. So we can share things outside of the fire department SharePoint site. It's not used a real lot. Dr. Hill's using it a lot. EMS is using it a lot. That's where they have any of the reviews they do on medical stuff. That's where they put them so Dr. Hill can see them from wherever he is. So back to OneDrive, which is not what we're talking about today. So I keep a lot of this stuff could actually go under Fleet 2, but I'm not Fleet 2 anymore, so a lot of it ends up here. And a lot of this stuff I got to get rid of. I was on a committee for truck bids for Colorado Springs, so I got all of their different specs. Oh, they
took a
I feel bad for them.
What they get?
I'll leave it at that. Okay, anything else on SharePoint? Say, look at that OneDrive, start using the OneDrive and migrate your J Drive stuff over. Yes?
With staffing levels a little heavier, some stations don't have enough computers for everyone to do reports in the morning. Is there any way to access High Plains on a personal computer or no?
That is locked down. This is really
Patient
tight.
information.
Is there a way to get more computers besides through station captains who don't want it?
I would maybe talk to your chief, or talk to your
Okay.
officer, and talk to your chief.
Okay.
I would go through your officer. It's a fairly slow process. One thing they can do, and this is not comfortable and not easy, is you can use the CF20 before you upload, which is a pain. And you can actually get High Plains on the MDC in the rig, which again is a pain, but it's a computer. We don't have that right now, but that was something. Yes, sir?
Oh, nothing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't tell you this, but Station 6 just got 2 new computers. Where was I? Why do I keep closing SharePoint when that's where I'm...
We waited for you. Yeah, so they're gonna keep right on.
Okay, what are we doing? Oh, I was going to print that. Oops. Oh, well. I didn't. We'll go through it. Another handout I forgot. This is a Word document. I'm going to kind of use it like a PowerPoint. This is actually on SharePoint. I have no idea where. Maybe we'll look it up before we're done. Somebody try to remind me that. I just put mobile for public safety in search and it came up. I think it's under the training. Anyway, so this is on SharePoint. Anyway. So first thing, restart the computer every single day. I have, does that cause you issues?
It does. Here's my fear. We get a call, right, as the computer.
Oh, it happens.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen every day. I've been out, I've been at Sixes since 1st of March, about. It's happened once. It's go grab the paper off the computer, because I can't remember the address, or write the address on your hand, or have something close, and get the map book. You have to be able to run the map book. Are we talking about map books at all? Do you practice with map books at all?
We haven't talked about it in the class.
Okay. Write down the grid number, write down the address. Grid number is the page number. What's a good grid number? 5 Adam 1. So 5 Adam, find that page. It should be in your small book almost always. So you'll have a small book with basically your district. And then you have the big book that's this thick. I keep hearing tones. Am I hearing things? Can I sit down for a minute?
Sure. Are you okay?
No. It's a long story. So that 5 Adam, so that's a grid in the city, and then the 1, 2, 3, 4 is a quarter grid. So you're down to a space this big on the map. The problem then is getting to that corner. That's a hard part, is do you have to go through 5 pages of to get to that map page. That's where it comes in, important stuff you learned in the academy. What's Hamden? What's the address? 3500. What's airport? 169. And I'm concentrating that because that's where I work now. But so Hamden and airport or Buckley. If you get that address, and that's the grid number, you should be able to get to that corner without looking through map pages. Does that make sense? Okay, so the stuff you learn in the academy really is important because that gets you to the map page. Six's areas is worse than areas I've ever worked in my life. It is horrible for twisting around, but you can almost always transparent to you. If you lose it for any length of time, it will crash or it just will lock up and you won't have anything. The other thing is the GPS is completely separate with a completely separate antenna. You can lose GPS and still have the UD key, still have connection, but the mapping won't work right. It won't show you your little fire engine going down the road. So you need both of those. So I've had 5 years at 7s. I've had very, very little issues. 2 years at 9s. I've had very, very little issues. I've had no issues at 6s since March. I've had 0 problems with losing connectivity or losing GPS. They are new computers as of, when did they all go out? First year, maybe? They do replace them every 3 years. Any questions on that? Say they're on cell cards all the time. They were originally switching to the Wi-Fi in the stations. They turned all that off and just staying on the cell card all the time.
You say they're brand like Verizon?
Verizon. We started out on T-Mobile way back when there was too many holes. Okay. So when you get a dispatch, this box pops up in the middle of the screen. You can't do anything until you hit en route. On occasion, I'm waiting for Andy to get the rig started. I would like to hit en route. Make sure you have a radio before you get en route. Engine 6 was, I think we're starting to lose our batteries, but you'd hit the battery and then you hit the starter and the radio would cut out. And I'd hit en route when the radio kicked on from the batteries and then I couldn't hear dispatch. Did I say that right?
I'm
So
sorry.
You did.
Andy turned on the batteries,
Yeah.
the radio would turn on,
Yeah.
and he'd hit the starter, the radio would turn off because of the current draw of the starter.
Okay, so every handheld on, right? Or not? Yes. Yeah.
Know your rig. So our rig just come back from the shops, they put new batteries in it. Now it doesn't do that anymore. The radio stays on when it hits the starter. So I think our batteries were just getting old. Yes?
What is the accepted turn time or en route time? Is there?
There is. Does anybody know that?
Isn't it one?
What's that?
1 minute.
I think it's 1 minute for medicals and a minute and a half for fires.
Yep. What are you supposed to do, or what have we been doing?
No, that's what
Goal
we're
turn
supposed to
off.
do.
Yeah.
In order for us to meet our
Because otherwise the chief will come
accreditation.
visit you.
It is a huge deal for accreditation. It is a big deal for ISO.
I know some guys will put themselves en route on the radio, especially like when you go to the grocery store.
Yeah, because you're en route. If you're on the way to the rig, you're. The fire department has not defined what en route means. Does it mean the wheels actually have to be turning, or you're some acknowledging and you're on your way? To me, I do it when I'm ready. When I'm settled, I got my headset on, and I know I can talk on the radio, I'll hit en route. There are places where the wheels actually have to be moving before you can go en route. So, the way it was originally set up, blue means you don't need bunker gear. Red means you do need bunker gear. And yellow means special, like hazmat or TRT or some kind of call like that.
Seems like sometimes it's been gray,
All the time, seems like.
most of the time.
Right now.
I have no idea what gray means. I have no idea.
Because you used to be able like to look and see.
Maybe it's not.
And
Colorblind.
Gray's like natural gas and smoke investigation, those things, right?
No, but even like medical calls that come up gray.
Yeah.
So medical is gray?
You know, I'm wondering, because we just did that new dispatch software, I wonder if they didn't follow this with it. Because we went from like 80 or 90 codes to 1,500 codes. 1,500 different types of calls. And they're struggling with that a little bit, getting it all to work correctly. It's on the Chief Gray's radar, so I'm sure it'll get resolved. So the way it was originally set up is this. I can't speak to how it's working now. I have seen the gray. I just never really registered.
And what was the yellow? I'm sorry, hazmat?
Yellow is hazmat or special. So this is a dispatch screen. This is what you get after you hit en route. So here's the address at Fire Station 5, the grid number, and the assigned unit. So it's actually just PE5. There's all kinds of other stuff. The 5 closest hydrants come up. They're usually down a little bit. You have to scroll down. One of my biggest frustrations with this is you have to use the scroll bar on the right side. You can't like flip it with your finger like you can on most laptops. You can't do that. It makes me crazy.
On every call, the 5 closest hydrants?
Yes. And then below that, they'll list some PD things. And this was originally PD software, and it's kind of been modified for fire. So it does a better job with some of the PD stuff. And if there's a pre-plan, because there's about 4,000 addresses that have pre-plans, and there's about 4,000 addresses that don't. And we'll get to that. You can click on, it'll be something, request green button. You click on that request green button, and it'll bring up that pre-plan. Route and location. This is the worst part of this whole thing. Okay, so you're en route. After I'm organized, first thing I want to do is hit route. Route will give you the whole route from where you are to where you're going, just like this. It does not, it updates your little rig, but it does not zoom in at all. So it'll show the rig every so many 30 seconds or whatever, moving along that route, but it does not zoom in. To zoom in, you have to click location, and that'll show you where you're going, and then you have to hit route again, and it'll show you again. If your rig's here, and you're going here, it'll zoom the map out, zoom the map in, showing where you are and where you're going. And you have to do route location, route location, route location.
You can't just zoom in?
No. Route location, route location, route location.
You can zoom in.
Yeah.
Oh, you can use the zoom in
Yeah.
buttons. Yeah, if you want, like here.
Right, okay.
But route location does the same thing. If you zoom in and you zoom in too far, like you're bouncing down the road and you click it 4 times, you'll zoom in on someplace way off the route and you won't be able to find where you're going.
Then you can reset it by hitting route again.
Route location.
Your pink
Yep.
line doesn't go away, does it?
No, it's off the grid. If you hit location first, the pink line won't be there. You have to hit route first. But if you hit location and it's not there and you hit route, then it'll be there. You can use zoom in, zoom out, center area, pan. I use pan the most. So I'll do route location until I'm fairly close, and then I'll pan over so I get on the map the major street into where we're going. Everybody does it a little bit different, but the problem I had with zoom in and zoom out is you can never, as you're bouncing down the road, you can never zoom into the place you really want to zoom into. But it works. You can do it. Always, and this will always use the stylus. You use your finger, it won't work. You can use your fingernail, that works okay, but if you have gloves on, it doesn't work that great. Use a stylus. Does a regular pen work? Has anybody tried that?
I use my finger.
A what?
My finger.
Does it? Regular? I've had a horrible time with it.
I use my finger and it works great.
Really? Boy, I haven't had any luck. And Andy, fingernail or finger?
No, you can use my fingertip.
Boy, I've not had it work at all.
Really? You might have to like do that calibration thing.
Oh, yeah. We probably won't go through how to do that, but you guys have an idea?
Size mediums.
Is that Donald Trump type hands? or-
Oh, my goodness.
Probably can't talk about that. Now I'm all discombobulated.
Route location, route
Oh,
location.
route location. Yeah, use route location. Are you guys okay? Judy, do you have to, can you come?
No, I love her so much more now. She has worse handmans than me.
Well, if you use the, if you have the rasters on, it's slows everything down.
Yeah. Does everybody know what rasters are?
Subverted,
Satellite
and I
view,
think
right?
It's
it gives you
aerial view.
Like satellite.
Satellite view. When I was at Sevens, I used it all the time. For whatever reason, I decided I hate it now. One thing is it really, really slows the system down. It's a lot of data. But get into some of these apartment buildings with fire lanes and stuff, sometimes you need to turn it on and really figure out where you're going and where you want to place the rig. I always had it on when I was at Nines. Now I seldom. My unit, this, wherever you are in the map, you click my unit, it centers your unit on the screen. That is actually now a button up here. So it's route location unit. The only thing is it doesn't follow your unit, so you'll drive right off the screen. That is supposed, there's a huge, Intergraph supposed to have a huge update coming this year, late this year. That's supposed to get fixed. A lot of the stuff that is pretty standard on like Google Maps now is they're going to hopefully catch up. The mapping takes a little practice.
Will the update orient the map, or will it still always be north?
I'm assuming up will still be north, but I don't know that for sure.
The reason we don't have like Google Maps, like, is that proprietary and really expensive, or?
We bought this really, really super expensive dispatch software, and IT is like, we're going to use this till the end of time because we spent so much money on it. It is, oh yeah, oh, well. It's a little out of date. It works. We're a little frustrated. Cops are frustrated with it. We're a little frustrated with it. But we're stuck with it for the foreseeable future. But the so-called update that they're promising, all kinds of stuff that are pretty standard on other packages now. So we'll see. One thing, the mapping, they provide the mapping. With the new software update, they'll use the actual city's GIS data. So the maps will be hopefully way better. The city does a really good job keeping the GIS data up to date. We'll see. One thing with this is the way the map is generated, the run numbers, they use a thing called cost analysis that measures how long does it take from using the and there's more to it than this, but using the speed limits of the roads from your place to wherever you're going, it can say how long it'll take to get there, and that's how they decide. Engine 1 first, engine 2 second, engine 3 third, engine 7 next. Next, and they go out, I think, 10 or 12 units deep. The problem with it is it doesn't do highways very well, and so we've had to manually go in and do highways. And we try to do, like 5s and 12s is, you know, if it's westbound, 12s goes, if it's eastbound, 5s goes, and at the intersections, it's just confusing. And so you'll hear 5s and 12s on the radio, well, we're going, but send 5s. It's always a little messy, and I can't remember the guy's name. Bill Keever's group maintains that. And they do what we ask them to do, and then a week later we find out we didn't quite do it right. Okay, we talked about auto arrive. We talked about clear. Over on the left side, there's all kinds of, you can use the map, you can route to different locations, you can type in an address and route to that location. I haven't really, except for helping IT out when I was upstairs, I've never used it. I'm not sure why you'd use it.
The route to location?
Yeah.
I know when I was with Sue on Rescue 1, she always uses the route to locate, because it tells you which way you're turning on which street, so you're not necessarily having to pay attention always to the map specifically.
Oh, you can turn on.
So it doesn't, since it doesn't orient.
She turned on the voice.
No, you just read it on the left.
You can turn on a voice too.
What he's talking about is like Google Maps where you type in an address. And
Oh, to go to a different
Yeah.
address. Okay.
Yeah, this you can have the verbiage on the screen, or it can talk to you if you want. You can click a button and it'll tell you each of your turns like Google Maps. It's just, there's too much noise already. Between the people talking in the back seat, listening to the radio, it'd just be that much more noise. It's all there, take a look at it. We're not going to spend any more time on it. Probably. So, you know, that's part of this, is just sitting down in the seat and looking at. Say, on the mapping, I use Pam all the time. In fact, in the morning I turn it on and make sure it's on when I re-log in everybody.
Guess I've never asked the chief, but if we come across a hoarder's home or some other unique thing about a home or a gully or something along those lines, can we forward that information to dispatch to put in on those particular homes?
Through your chief.
Through the chief.
Here's the directions on the side of the map. Is this what you're talking
I
about?
believe so.
Okay.
But I don't remember the stuff at the bottom there. Left 300 feet stuff. That might
Yeah,
be up
that's- I don't-
since I was on Rescue.
You can hide that too. We don't care about that. We'll do that special status thing in a minute. That's the event monitor. We'll play with that maybe.